80% of engines that fail before 150,000 miles had perfect oil changes. But the wrong follow-up. That's right, it's not the oil, it's what happens after. One missed check, one lazy shortcut, and you're cutting your engine's life in half. But do this right after every oil change, you can double it. I'm talking 400,000-mile engines that still purr, because the secret isn't in the oil. It's in what you do next. Check number 13. Check oil level and dipstick accuracy. Most folks think once they pour in the new oil and slam the hood shut, the job's done. But that's where a lot of engines start dying slow deaths. The first thing you do after an oil change? Check that dipstick. Sounds simple, right? But you'd be shocked how many get it wrong. Oil doesn't settle evenly right after a change. You've got to let that engine sit a couple of minutes. Let the oil drain back down into the pan. Then pull the dipstick, wipe it clean, slide it back in, and pull it again. That second reading? That's the truth. Now here's where it gets tricky. Don't just look for the level. Look at the color and consistency. Fresh oil should be clear and golden, not cloudy or dark. If it's already dark, that engine's holding old sludge somewhere. That means next change. It needs a flush or a shorter interval. And don't trust every dipstick blindly. Some are off by design, cheap manufacturing, worn seals, or even an aftermarket stick that doesn't match your oil pan depth. That's why, if you've just bought a used car, double-check the oil capacity in the manual. If it takes 5 quarts, make sure 5 quarts puts you right at that full line. Not above it, not below. Because too much oil foams and starves your bearings. Too little? You're grinding metal. Both kill engines quietly. But even after that dipstick's clean and perfect, there's something else you've got to look for next. And it's not inside the oil pan. Check number 12. Inspect for leaks. Once that dipstick shows you're in the clear, don't relax just yet. Because the next few minutes are when leaks love to show their face. Fresh oil finds weak spots fast. Old gaskets, loose filters, worn crush washers. If something's not sealed right, that new oil will start marking its territory before you even pull out of the driveway. So grab a flashlight and take a slow look underneath. Around the oil pan, the filter, and that drain plug, that's where trouble usually starts. You're not just looking for dripping oil, you're looking for a sheen, a film that catches the light. That's a leak in its first stage, before it becomes a puddle on your garage floor. Now, here's what most people miss. Even a tiny leak changes the whole chemistry of your engine. It lets dirt in, pressure out, and it messes with oil circulation. You lose oil slower than you notice it, until one day that warning light flickers, and by then the damage is done. If you spot anything wet, don't crank that engine and hope it goes away. Pull the filter, check the gasket, and make sure the drain plug washer isn't cracked or doubled up. A few cents in seals can save you thousands in repairs. Because once that oil starts running clean and sealed tight, it's time to make sure the part holding it all together isn't the weak link, the oil filter itself. Check number 11. Verify oil filter torque. Here's the thing about oil filters. They look simple, but they've probably destroyed more engines than any bad batch of oil ever has. Most folks hand tighten them, give it a good twist, and call it a day. But that's where it all goes wrong. Too loose, and oil seeps out the moment pressure builds. Too tight, and you crush the gasket, creating a leak that doesn't show up until the next start. Either way, you're bleeding oil. Sometimes so slow you won't notice until your bearings start singing the death song. The right way? Always hand tighten until the gasket makes full contact, then use a filter wrench to snug it about 3/4 of a turn more. Not by feel, by control. Oil that gasket lightly before you install it, so it seals clean and doesn't tear when the engine heats up. And never double up on gaskets. I've seen filters pulled off with the old rubber still stuck to the housing, and the next one gets stacked right on top. That's an instant blowout waiting to happen. After that, take a breath. Start the engine, let it idle a few seconds, and shut it down. Then check the filter base again. Any trace of oil, any glisten? It's not tight enough. Because that filter is the heart of your oil system. Once you're sure it's torqued just right, you're ready to make sure your car actually knows you've given it fresh life. Check number 10. Reset oil life or maintenance light. Now that everything's sealed and torqued just right, there's one step almost everyone forgets. resetting the oil life or maintenance light. Sounds small, but it's bigger than you think. That light isn't just a reminder, it's how your car tracks the heartbeat of your engine. See, modern cars don't just count miles. They monitor driving habits, temperature, idle time, and even how often you hit the gas. That oil life percentage is a calculated guess at how dirty your oil really is. If you don't reset it, the computer keeps thinking you're still running old oil, and the next reminder will be completely off. That means you might be changing oil too early, wasting good oil, or too late, running your engine longer on sludge than it should. Either way, the system loses accuracy, and you lose control of your maintenance rhythm. So grab your owner's manual or look up the reset sequence. It's usually a few button presses, a pedal trick, or a menu on the dash. Do it every single time, no matter what, because that small digital reset tells your engine's brain, we're starting fresh. Once that light's gone and your system's tracking new data, you're in sync again. But before you roll out, there's something even more important than the computer. It's what your own ears can tell you when that engine comes to life. Check number 9. Run the engine and listen carefully. When you fire up that engine after an oil change, that's the moment of truth. Don't just hop in and drive off. Listen, because your ears can pick up what sensors can't. For the first few seconds, it's normal to hear a soft tick or a brief rattle. That's oil pressure building and filling all the little passages. But that sound should disappear quick. If it keeps ticking, knocking, or clattering, something's not right. Maybe the filter's empty, oil didn't prime, or there's air trapped in the system. Shut it down, check everything again. Now pay attention to the idle. A smooth hum means oil's flowing steady, coating every moving part. A rough or shaky idle. That can mean the oil level's off or the filter's choking the flow. Sometimes, the wrong filter size or a cheap brand can do that. And it's one of those little things that separates a clean-running engine from one that slowly wears itself down. Take a walk around the car while it's idling. Listen from different angles, from the front, the sides, even under the hood. Every engine has its own voice. You just have to learn what healthy sounds like. And once that rhythm feels steady, don't shut it down yet, because there's one more test your engine's got to pass before you trust it to the road. Check number 8. Check engine temperature. Once that engine's running smooth and quiet, your next move is to keep an eye on the temperature gauge. This is where a lot of people get careless. They change the oil, start the engine, everything sounds fine. And then 5 minutes later, it's creeping past normal because something small got missed. As the engine warms up, that fresh oil thins out just enough to circulate freely. You want to see the temperature rise slowly and settle right in the middle of the gauge. If it starts to spike, don't ignore it. That could mean air trapped in the cooling system, a sensor unplugged during the oil change, or even oil that's too thick for the season. Engines run their best when they reach operating temperature. That's when oil pressure and viscosity balance out. But if it overheats or runs too cold, you're not getting the protection that new oil's supposed to give. Let it idle until the cooling fans kick on and shut off at least once. That tells you everything's working like it should. Thermostat's opening, coolant's moving, and the oil's at full flow. Then shut it down, pop the hood, and give it a minute to breathe. Because the next step isn't about heat or noise. It's about what happens when that oil meets real-world pressure. Check number 7. Inspect oil filter and drain plug for leaks under load. Once the engine's warm and pressure's up, that's when the real test begins. Because leaks don't always show themselves at idle. They wait until oil's hot, thin, and under full pressure. That's why you check again, right now. Grab your light and take another slow look under the car. Start with the drain plug. You want it dry as a bone. No glisten, no dark ring forming around it. Even a single drop means that washer didn't seal right, or maybe the plug was over-torqued and crushed the threads. Don't brush it off. A few drips today can turn into a low oil warning light on the highway tomorrow. Then move to the oil filter. Feel around the base, carefully because it's hot. And check for any wetness. Under load, oil pressure can climb past 60, even 70 pounds per square inch. If the gasket's pinched, that's when it'll start to seep. You might not see a puddle, but you'll smell that burnt oil as it hits the exhaust. If you find anything even slightly damp, shut it down and fix it now. Don't keep an eye on it. Oil leaks don't heal, they grow. Once you're sure everything's tight and sealed under pressure, you've got one more system to check, because oil isn't the only fluid that keeps that engine alive. Check number 6. Check fluid levels around the engine. With the oil system sealed tight, it's time to look at the rest of the fluids. Because your engine doesn't live on oil alone. Every one of those fluids plays backup. Miss one, and that perfect oil change won't save you. Start with the coolant. Pop the reservoir cap only when it's cool, and make sure the level sits between the marks. If it's low, find out why. A slow coolant leak will overheat even the healthiest engine. Look for crusty residue or a sweet smell. That's antifreeze escaping. Then check your brake fluid and power steering. Both matter more than most people realize. Brake fluid absorbs moisture over time, and when it gets dark or cloudy, it loses its bite. Power steering fluid that's low can make your pump whine and send little metal flakes through the system. Don't forget transmission fluid, if your car has a dipstick for it. Warm up the engine, shift through every gear, then check it in park. The fluid should be clean, red, or amber, and it should smell right, not burnt. And while you're under the hood, take a second to glance at washer fluid too. Sounds silly, but when that windshield's coated in grime and you can't see a thing, you'll be glad you did. Once every fluid's topped and looking healthy, it's time to check the one thing that decides whether your engine breathes clean or chokes on its own dirt. Check number 5. Examine air filter condition. Most folks don't realize this, but clean oil means nothing if your engine's breathing through a dirty nose. That air filter is your engine's lungs, and if it's clogged, you're starving it of air, forcing it to work harder every time you hit the gas. Pop open that air box and take a good look. Hold the filter up to the light. You should see daylight through the pleats. If it's dark, packed with dust, or covered in bugs and leaves, it's time for a new one. Don't just tap it on the ground or blow it out with an air hose. That might clean the surface, but it also tears the fibers, letting dirt slip through later. A clogged filter throws off your air-fuel mix, kills your fuel mileage, and makes your oil dirty faster. Because every bit of dust that sneaks past that filter ends up trapped in your oil, turning that fresh golden fluid into abrasive paste way before its time. Use a good quality filter, not the cheapest one on the rack. The difference between a $5 filter and a $15 one can be thousands in engine wear. Once you know your engine's breathing clean again, take a step back, because the next part isn't about air or oil. It's about a small valve that most people never even think about, but it quietly decides how long that fresh oil really lasts. Check number 4. Inspect PCV valve and hoses. Most folks don't even know it exists. But it's one of the quiet heroes keeping your engine clean from the inside out. PCV stands for positive crankcase ventilation, and its job is to pull fumes, moisture, and unburned gases out of the engine so they don't turn your oil into sludge. When that valve clogs or the hoses crack, pressure builds up inside the crankcase. You'll start to see oil seeping from seals, gaskets sweating, maybe even the dipstick getting pushed out a little. Most drivers blame the oil or the brand, but the truth is, it's often that tiny valve not doing its job. Pull it out and give it a shake. You should hear a little rattle. That means the internal plunger's moving freely. If it's silent or sticky, replace it. It costs just a few bucks, but it keeps your engine breathing right and your oil cleaner for longer. Check the hoses too. Look for soft spots, cracks, or oily buildup. A vacuum leak here can throw off your idle and make the engine run rough. Once that PCV system's flowing smooth again, your engine can vent cleanly, and that fresh oil will stay cleaner, longer. But if you're wondering whether to take it a step further, maybe flush out all the old gunk inside, there's a right and wrong way to do that next part. Check number 3. Use an engine flush only if needed. Here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They think pouring an engine flush in every time makes them extra careful. But truth is, an engine flush is like chemotherapy. It's only good when you actually need it. Used at the wrong time, it can do more harm than good. If you've kept up with regular oil changes and your oil's coming out clean, skip the flush. You're just wasting money. But if that oil drains out thick, black, or sludgy, or you're working with a used car that's been neglected, that's when a flush can help. It loosens the carbon buildup and sludge that choke oil passages. Here's the catch though. If an engine's heavily sludged, a strong flush can break off chunks too fast. Those bits can block oil passages or the pickup screen, starving the top end of oil. That's why you always start gentle. Use a mild flush from a trusted brand. Let it idle, never rev, for just a few minutes before draining. Afterward, always use a high-quality oil and filter. The flush removes the protective layer along with the grime, so that next fill needs to be clean and strong. Engine flushes are tools, not habits. Use them when needed, and your oil system will stay clear and honest. But once that's handled, it's time to talk about something even more important: keeping track of what you just put in that engine. Check number 2. Record oil brand, type, and mileage. Now here's a step most folks skip, but it's one of the smartest habits you can build. Write everything down: the oil brand, the viscosity, the filter you used, and the mileage when you changed it. It might sound old-fashioned, but this is how you build a track record that tells the truth about your engine. Grab a notebook, your phone, or even a piece of masking tape on the radiator support. Whatever works. Write down the date, mileage, and what you used. Because 3 or 4 oil changes later, you won't remember if you ran 0W20 or 5W30, or whether you switched brands. But your engine will. Consistency matters. Mixing different oil types or switching brands, every other change confuses the additive balance. Some oils clean more aggressively, others protect better. When you keep jumping around, you never give your engine a steady formula to work with. And if a problem ever shows up, a leak, a noise, a drop in pressure, your notes will tell the story. You'll know when it started, what changed, and what didn't. That's how good mechanics think. We track patterns. Once you've got that info recorded, close the book and give the engine a minute before putting it back to work. Because the last step, the one everyone forgets, is the key to making all the rest truly count. Check number 1. Let the engine settle before heavy loads. Here's the part hardly anyone talks about. The few minutes after an oil change can make or break everything you just did. When that new oil first circulates, it's full of microscopic air bubbles from pouring, pumping, and draining. Those bubbles need time to settle out before the oil can form a solid, protective film across every bearing and journal. So once you've checked everything, tightened everything, and recorded the details, don't throw it straight into gear and floor it down the road. Let that engine idle. Let it warm up. Give the oil a chance to calm down, to coat every passage and surface evenly. Taking off too soon, especially towing, revving high, or running it hard, means that fresh oil's not ready yet. You're asking dry parts to do wet work. That's where wear starts. You won't notice it today or next week, but years down the road, that's the kind of wear that cuts an engine's life in half. Let it settle. Let it breathe. 5 quiet minutes now can save you 5,000 later. Once the temperature's steady, pressure's normal, and the idle's smooth, then you can trust it to run like new. Because in the end, engines don't die from miles. They die from neglect. Do these little things after every oil change, and your engine won't just last longer. It'll thank you every time you turn that key. If you learned something today, give that like button a tap. It helps more folks keep their engines alive. Share this with anyone who does their own oil changes, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Watch the next video below. Your engine will thank you.